So we're just gonna jump right into it. Last lesson and the lesson before, we were talking about mapping out your unique acoustics. It is your body and your face and your head space that adds so much nuance to the character of your voice. So it's very important to relax and allow the air to go where it needs to go, because we're going to continue on with this exploration today. And I was intentionally very vague, and just saying registers. But as we come into it today, we're going to be clear about how to support the registers. When we talk about registration, so much is very, very, very confusing for myself and for a lot of singers. I get asked the question a lot, where do I put this song? Or do I put this song in my chest voice? Or do I put it in my head voice? Or do I put it in a mix? And I understand the essence of the question is really more about like where am I going to get the most centered place in my voice? But we don't want to be that this or that. We want to give the voice the freedom to blend naturally. So we're going to talk about how to do that today, how to actually support the registers consistently. It's going to be a little, fun. It'll be fun. And I'm going to tell a little bit of a secret for y'all. My husband has just started learning the flute. But he's doing so great. And we had a really great musical conversation a couple days ago. He said, what is it that you practice the most? Like the most as a singer, as a voice teacher? And without hesitation, I just said intonation. And he said, yeah, that's true. That's what I'm learning too. Because how you come into the note determines how that whole phrase is going to play out. So when we talk about supporting the registers, we're also going to bring in intonation into that. So we're just going to jump right into this. Okay, you guys ready? We're going to really work on a word that I've sort of thrown around hither and thither, but the word is appoggio. And that literally is like to lean into the breath, to sort of ride the breath per se. But we're going to get very concise and clear about appoggio, because it's really, if I were to do like a specific definition of like appoggio breathing, for example, you're going to intentionally slow down the ascent of the diaphragm and getting a very concise and pressurized subglottal pressure in the body. Yeah, that's what we're going for. We're going to slow down that ascent of the diaphragm, really giving us nice pressure in the body. The sound we're going to play with is like huh, like sort of like a Frenchy vowel. Huh, huh, huh. Yeah. The H is going to allow for us to get a good pressure supraglottally above the vocal cords. And we're going to feel as if we are packing. For my visual learners out there, if it's really helpful for you to imagine certain things with the body, we're going to really feel like we're packing the breath into our acoustic space, almost like we're packing gauze into like a wound. Like we're really going to pack it in there. And we're going to use that as a means to intonate with that kind of pressure. We want a perfect pressure, a fully embodied pressure, subglottally and supraglottally as we intonate. If we can do this across registers, blending and thinking about placement will be a thing of the past. Okay, that all sound really good? Awesome. So Mabel's decided to hang out with us today. So we're going to start on the bottom. Again, we're just going to feel what this feels like. We've got our H to establish a flow to come through our face. So if you need a aim, I want you to focus on your mask. But you are going to notice, much like our second lesson where we were mapping out your acoustics, that each note is going to go to a different space inside of your acoustics. At the end of the day, we will achieve what we wanted in our first lesson, which is to say everything just feels like sexy talking. It all just feels accessible as speech. That's what we're going for. I'm just checking. Yeah, there we go. Checking on my skirt here. So we're going to start sort of, let's start on G. And guys, if you want to start slightly low, if you're like a bass or baritone, if you want to start there, I'm good with that. So we're just going to do a honk. Just try that for me without the pitch. Honk. Honk. Feel how that H is going to help lift that diaphragm just straight upward, like a syringe. Honk. I'm going there. Honk. Honk. Good. So we're going to have to teeter-totter here and there just to check in. But we want to feel that slow lift from the diaphragm. Okay? Now we're going to pivot to the pressure that's supraglottal, up inside of the resonator. So down here, I want to sort of aim my air to my mask, right through here. Just really use that H, that delayed onset from the H, that will remove any sort of squeezing from the voice box. So we're going to do each note probably 3 times, thinking that we are really getting in there and packing something that has a lot of tone to it. Here we go. Ready? Good. Are you starting to feel like it's starting to steady out a little bit? Yeah, Barb, I'm breathing in between. That's a good question. I'm just allowing each one to feel like a fresh intonation. Good. And I won't talk too much as we move through this, but you may notice that the lower notes will feel a little wilder than the higher notes because we're not accustomed to getting that pressurized, steady airflow on the lower note, which is why if you're a lower singer, it may feel a little wilder, a little wobblier. So you're not doing anything wrong. That's just what we're doing. Here we go. Good. Now just hear this difference right here. If I do like a lackadaisical chest voice, you hear how that's kind of lackadaisical, it's not supported. But if I go, you can actually hear the support in it. Good. Good, good. Really feels like my head is just completely hollow. There's no distinction between my nose and my mouth spaces. If I were to try to separate that, like I'm gonna make this mouthy, I can do that. I can make it nasal. But I'm really, personally, I like a good balanced sound. The best example that I can give you of like a fantastic balanced sound in terms of singers is Michael Bublé. Like he's just got a really lovely balanced sound between his nose and his mouth. So let's aim for that. Yeah, I'm really starting to feel that packing of pressure, almost like something is pressing in to my roof of my mouth and my nose. There's like an equivalency of that pressure that's coming right into that spot. Let's see if we can feel that. Use the H. Now we're going to shift a little bit to sort of help. So many of us are going through our nasal port. Kind of kept the vocal tract nice and long. Now we're going to broaden it just a little bit to stabilize the nasal port. So we're going to go ha a little bit. We're going to sing over the top teeth. That should give a little bit of an assist if you're having trouble accessing that in-between space. Does it feel steadier? Good. Good. And notice, like you can really hear my nose taking over. And I'm trying to lean into the most amount of supraglottal pressure. Because depending on your level of skill and where you are in your vocal journey, this might not make sense to you. You may need right now as a singer to isolate feelings. But what we want to do ultimately is to have a full-bodied experience, right? We want everything to feel like it's got a full voice effect, even if it's like the higher notes. But when we're just learning, we might have to separate them a little bit until we get accustomed to isolating them. Today, we're going, all right, just let it integrate a little bit. Because that H and that is really going to help you kind of get the pressure where the pressure needs to be. So for me, as you guys know, this A is like a nemesis note. It's the very first note of nasal dominance. So I've got to really start to think. It's right outside of my tessitura. So I've really got to start to think and engage that image of me trying to like pack some gauze like up there, but the gauze is like the air pressure. I want to get as much air pressure that I can balance into that space. Because we don't want a habitual sense of going, because there's no air pressure and there's no chord closure to that. So we're trying to use like a yeah, we're just trying to use as much, get that air where it needs to be. Don't place it. Don't try to go, I'm going to try to sing this in my chest voice, because it'll just be and that might sound okay for a note or two, but you're kind of behind on the displacing and the blending of pressure. So the more likelihood you're going to get that break, that big break. And we don't want to do that. We're trying to support this exchange. So if you need to make it a little broader and like biting into like a line, instead of like I'm trying to keep it neutral because that's where I'm finding there's a little bit of difficulty. But if you need more of an assist, go slightly wider. That will help you stabilize where you are. Let's try that A 3 times. Yes, 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 yes. One more time. Yeah, you'll get better at it the more you do it, the more you just work that intonation, especially where you know you're weak. Moving on. Good. Concentrate on the lift of that diaphragm, appoggio. Make it slow. Yeah. Good. And notice too, we have very little vibrato. Very little vibrato because we're trying to hold these notes, these intonations under consistent tension, under consistent pressure, because we are trying to strengthen those notes. One more time on the C5. You see what I'm doing? I'm kind of like looking for that space with my air. If I go, I'm off of it. So I've got to legitimately let the air go up into the space. Good. Here we go. Press into it with the air. Good. Right. Now, in some ways, the higher notes are easier because they have a higher degree of pressure. Makes them easier. The compression on it is more natural. The lower notes are harder for that reason. But for me, I'm outside of my appoggio, so I got to really think about what I'm doing. To really think about it. But what's so cool about this, guys, is the more you think, like, I'm just going to do 3 consecutive intonations, and that's the only thing that you're thinking about with your mind. The only thing that you're thinking about. You'll notice that the relationship between your diaphragm and your vocal cords can create a quicker, stronger intonation. So you can get a fuller, more robust sound. Good. So let's just do 2 more. Keep the diaphragm lifting. Don't you give up on your diaphragm. Good. Very good. Do más. Good. Louise says the tail end of each note is always a bit ragged, not clean. That's okay. As long as the coming into the tone is good. The end of the sound, you know how we're like just sustaining it, right? We're doing like at least 3 to 4 counts of each note. Yeah, 3 to 4 of each note. So as you're holding this pressure and this tension, and if you get like a raggedy wobble at the end, that's just indicative that the mechanism is a little weaker. This is a new sort of thing. It's a great way to strengthen those registers. And we're doing it via support. We're really concentrating on, we want perfect amount of pressure. Subglottally, between the lift of the diaphragm and that feeling of which is pressure dependent, so that closes the cords. And supraglottally, up inside of the resonator. If we can do that across our range, then we have a way bigger chance of having a blend that feels more natural, like there's a natural tone. We're not augmenting the sound too much. We've gone ha, ha. Now that's just if you need an assist. So if you're going, that's easier. The broader it is, the easier it helps the cords find a little bit more tension. The more you elongate it, the harder it is, because you're going to have to call forth more air pressure. That make kind of sense? Good. So I would really, really recommend just intonating between what feels like a comfortable low note for you. Don't go to the way ends of your range, but comfortable speaking range. We kind of started at F and we went to E. So if you guys want to do one more, that'll be 2 octaves. So let's do one more to just round it out to 2 octaves. Here we go.